Kyle XY, a show that dared to ask the question, what if Franken-Einstein was a 16-year-old white boy from Seattle? Ideally, I would be filming this in a bathtub, but I don't have a bathtub, so this is the next best thing. A few weeks ago, I was sitting in a circle with a bunch of actors, because actors love circles. And we're going around and we're doing little icebreakers. And so we get like halfway around the circle, and this girl just goes, "Hi, I'm Susie, I'm from Lancaster, and my fun fact is that I don't have a belly button." And I shit you not, every single person who was in that room and under the age of 30 audibly gasped. And like a hive mind creature from the Black Lagoon, we all said out loud in unison, "Kyle XY." And 2 days later, my wisdom teeth got infected, so I had a really great excuse to sit down and watch Kyle XY. At which point, you might be thinking that I am going to suggest to you to go and watch Kyle XY before you watch this video. No, despite the fact that this is not a recap video, I do not recommend that you go and watch Kyle XY for multiple reasons. One of which being that if you are not able to write off Hulu Premium on your taxes, it is absolutely not worth you sitting through twice as many ads as there is television. It's not worth it. The other being the ending, if you can call it that. I use the term ending loosely because Kyle XY ends on a cliffhanger, and not like a will they won't they sequel end of season cliffhanger. Kyle XY ends on what is generously called a mid-season cliffhanger. It ends on a cliffhanger like it's free solo, okay? And I don't think that you should subject yourself to that without having all of the information that is available to you. I don't think that you should go into this without knowing what you are getting yourself into. So instead of giving you like an in-depth recap video, I have instead put together a complete guide to Kyle XY. This is everything you need to know. This is everything in the show. This is everything outside of the show. This is not in chronological order. This is not strictly the plot. Okay, this is a how-to guide. So with that, let's begin. Part 1, Immaculate Conception. Who and what is a Kyle XY? Kyle XY is an American science fiction television show that ran on ABC Family from 2006 to 2009, following a regular old family and this like strange 16-year-old orphan without a belly button that they take in. And that 16-year-old orphan that they take in off the street, that is Kyle. That is Kyle XY. Kyle XY does not have a belly button, but he does have some mildly extraterrestrial abilities and dreamy boy band eyes. So it was a recipe for success, of course, when it aired, and it was a success. People loved Kyle XY. It had great ratings. It was fantastic. Kyle is an experiment, right? We'll start there. He is not an alien. He is a science experiment gone either very, very right or very, very wrong, depending on who you ask. And he's also a top secret experiment, so nobody is supposed to know about this like lab-grown Harry Styles, okay? You know how they say like humans only use 10% of their brain? Well, the theory behind Kyle XY is that if you are in the womb longer, you can use more percentages. So Kyle was sort of like artificially like mixed up and created and then implanted into an artificial womb, which is just like this big tube thing, right? He's in this, that picture is upside down, but he's in a tube. They like mixed up a little embryo and they put it in this artificial womb and they created a 16-year-old fetus. They just left him in there, and because there's no mother, there's no umbilical cord, so there's no belly button. So he's just like gestating in a tube for 16 years while some science guys like use his brain as a supercomputer for like weapons manufacturing and stuff. Things that Kyle does have: big brain power. Things that Kyle does not have: a single worldly experience and a belly button. So the show kind of starts like Lost. He wakes up naked in the woods covered in goo. That's what happens, okay? He wakes up naked in the woods and he's covered in goo, stumbles across a couple that are having sex, and then he like stumbles out into the world in the streets of Seattle and is like immediately taken to juvie, right? Because while we know that Matt Dallas is 24 years old at the time that he is playing Kyle, nobody else knows that, so he's just like a naked teenager running around. So they take him to juvie. That's where he gets the name Kyle. The juvie guy is like, he reminds me of my brother Kyle. And
you know, he kind of reminds me of my brother Kyle. Got all the looks in the family.
That's perfect. Kyle.
Because he can't talk. He can't talk. He's not talking. So in Juvie, we meet Nicole Traeger. Nicole Traeger is a child psychologist, therapist, social worker person who Juvie called because Juvie was like, hey, we have this weird 16-year-old kid who doesn't talk or have a belly button. Can you take care of this? And she is like, don't worry, guys. I got it. I'm a therapist. I can handle it. And immediately takes him to her house. She takes him to her house with her husband, Steven, and their two teenagers, Lori and Josh, who are obviously not stoked about this. One of the first things that you notice about this show is that the editing is absolutely fucking insane. The editing of this show is bonkers. We go from like a two-shot of the parents to this like intense close-up of the teenage boy's jaw. And the cut choices that they make are absolutely terrifying. So I said earlier that Kyle can't talk, and I should have said he doesn't talk. He doesn't talk to anyone in the show. He does, however, talk to us. He can certainly talk to us, and boy does he. Kyle narrates most of the show for us, particularly the first season.
For some reason, the more people I saw, the more alone I felt.
And not just like the beginning and the end. Throughout every episode, Kyle just pops in full Twilight Saga in like wistful poetic reverie to tell us what is going on. And these narrations, like, especially in the first half of the show, these narrations, they are like experimental modernist art all by themselves. Because here's the thing, Kyle is also a genius. Kyle is a genius, but he was also born yesterday. So he says things like, the sound increased my sorrow, and every species is born with an instinct that ultimately creates a balance with nature, except the one that I was born into. And then 2 minutes later, he's like, my first thought was that there were tiny people living in the walls. And then I realized, no, humans grow smaller and I was also shrinking. It's like particularly wild in the first half of the season because that portion of the show is made up almost entirely of like Kyle learning to be human plot lines. There is like a murder subplot going on, but for the most part, it's like Kyle learns how to use the bathroom. Kyle learns what sleep is. Kyle learns how to go to school. And it's not a joke. The writers of Kyle XY commit to the bit. They commit 100% to this idea that Kyle woke up yesterday because he can breathe, walk, and draw, and that's about it. They do not pull any punches when it comes to Kyle doesn't know how to do things. Tropes. Like, Kyle doesn't know how to use the bathroom. Kyle doesn't know he has to use the bathroom. He doesn't know what sleep is. He doesn't know boundaries. He doesn't know how to talk. Like, he fully, like, is a danger to himself and others. And as a result, the secondhand embarrassment is astronomical. It is unparalleled. It's so cringe-inducing. It's insane.
Yo, let's get some juice down here.
The writers do clearly get bored of that very quickly because eventually they just like have him read every encyclopedia in the library and then he's like, okay, I got it. I know what's going on now. So he becomes a walking encyclopedia. Kyle is this like shining example of a blank slate. Kyle has all of the knowledge of the entire world in his brain and not a lick of trauma. He remains completely untouched by life's horrors and all of the things that like fuck us up as we grow up. He's perfectly pure, and he is also like a white dude. So it's really the ideal scenario, to be honest. But like, the thing is, this also does make him like very, very trusting. It makes him like far, far too trusting. So it's very lucky that he fell into the lap of the Traeger family because they're like decent people, right? Anything could have happened to him. But because he is so trusting, because he just believes what he is told, he takes everything fully at face value, which leads to like jokes, but also very much makes everybody else around him rethink about what they're saying and what they really mean. So everybody's reflecting, right? Like, Kyle doesn't sleep. He can't sleep. They don't know why he won't sleep. It doesn't really seem to be a problem. He doesn't seem like tired at all, but the Traegers are very concerned about it. So they are really trying to get him to sleep. So the dad takes him running at one point to try and tire him out so he'll sleep. And they have this very like poignant exchange where Kyle talks about like just being and how he doesn't understand how people are running out of time. And at the end of the episode, episode, basically, they realize that, like, Kyle just needs to sleep in a bathtub because he's used to being in a tube. So they just let him sleep in the bathtub, which is why I'm in this hamper. So I can probably get out of it now. Oh, thank God. All right, so they let him sleep in the bathtub, and Nicole is like, oh, I have so much I can get done now. I have so much to do. And Steven's like, no, let's just be. And Kyle has taught them a life lesson just like Jesus Christ. I started the Kyle is Jesus thing as a joke, but it's actually, there's more parallels than I anticipated. There's definitely like an Immaculate Conception thing going on, right? He was born in a tube, no mother, no umbilical cord. For those of you who don't know, most people think that the Immaculate Conception is like Virgin Mary conceiving Jesus, but the Immaculate Conception is actually Mary's conception, because Mary was like born without sin, right? You know how every other Christian is born tainted? Not Mary. Mary got skipped in the conveyor belt, so she is perfect and therefore able to then carry the Son of God. So she will not pass down that original sin that we all have to, you know, live with in our chromosomes or whatever they think is going on. So Mary is born without sin. Jesus is born without sin. Kyle, also born without sin. Or a belly button. Kyle can also do crazy shit. Kyle also can do crazy ass shit. Crazy ass shit like Jesus. Including but not limited to predicting and quite possibly controlling the weather, prophetic memories and subconscious tendencies, pixel perfect drawing abilities, pixel perfect memory, impossible math and calculus like in his head, perfect aim, good at sports, telepathy, telekinesis. He can fly. He flies at one point. He like walks through a glass door, emerges unscathed, and ninja fights a cop. This is in the first episode, and he like Kyle ninja warriors his way out of police brutality and is so intimidating that this cop just leaves a party full of drunken minors in defeat. The list of things that Kyle can do continues to grow throughout the seasons. He kind of will like unlock a new like ability that he has every couple of episodes. So we'll add to this list as we go. For the most part, like a lot of the ones in the beginning kind of just get like written off under the guise of like, oh, he's a super genius. He's just being super smart. That's how he can guess the weather. And like, he's just being super smart with like physics. That's why he never misses a basket and stuff like that. The only person who is not convinced is Josh. Josh also keeps a Kyle file. Josh is fully convinced that he's an alien and has no problem telling him this. At one point he's like, maybe go wait for your family to pick you up and beam you back home. And so Kyle like disappears into the woods in the middle of the night. They have to like go and find him, and it's like pouring rain, and they're like, what are you doing out here? And he's like, I came so my family could find me. And they're like, I think we just did. And there's not a dry eye in the fucking house. Part 2, the disciples, XY. So the Traegers love Kyle, okay? They love him. They love Kyle. By the end of episode 1, like Lori has seen him like fight off a cop at a party. He's helping Josh with his homework. He's helping the dad with his computery stuff. And Nicole just loves to care and nurture, and they have all collectively decided that they love him, they will keep him, he is their squishy, right? I love this. One of the things that I love the most about this show is that it really is just like a show full of good people trying to be good people. They make mistakes, but like no one is like a monster for no reason, you know? The dad doesn't have some like aggressive man up attitude. He doesn't like have beef with Kyle for whatever reason. I feel like a lot of like father son relationships are like competitive, weird, and like maybe it's my daddy issues talking, but I just like that Steven is a good dad, okay? Kyle gets accused of murder pretty early on in the first season. I mean, not really, because like the kid can't tie his shoes, but like kind of gets accused of murder because they find a body in the woods where he was wandering around. In any other show, this would mean that the family is like suspicious and like a little angsty and concerned, but no, not in Kyle XY. Not the Traegers. The Traegers are like, excuse me, they think he did what now? They're all just like, there is absolutely no way that he killed anyone. Leave him the fuck alone. Steven Traeger sees some guy like lurking around their house and like lurking around Kyle, and he's like, what the fuck are you doing? And even after the guy convinces him that he's like a cop doing like investigation and then later like protective duties, Steven Traeger is still like, I don't like it, and calls the police station and is like, we need a different security person. I don't trust this guy around my weird alien orphan kid. He loves Kyle, he loves his kids. He gives like the best sex talk ever to his teenage son.
But I can assure you that tonight will not be about sex.
I thought prom was basically just foreplay for much of the adolescent universe.
Says who?
Josh?
Josh?
What's up?
Not you, that's for sure. So, listen.
Please don't.
I have to.
Then could you make it quick and painless, please?
All right, you want it quick and painless? Don't use this.
You don't want me to have safe sex?
No. I mean, yes, I do want you to have safe sex, but no, I don't want you to have sex at all. I'd much rather you wait till you know you're ready. Till you and Andy know you're ready. It'll mean a whole lot more if you do. But if you decide to ignore everything I say and make your own monumentally life-altering, no-going-back decision to have sex, forever changing the relationship you have with Andy, then I want you to be protected.
Can I go now?
Yes.
So how was the talk part 2?
Well, a little like that condom I just gave our son. Clumsy, awkward, but hopefully effective.
And then later also his teenage son is like definitely snuck his girlfriend into his room at one point for like their last night before she moves or something like that. And he very much just like lets it go. On that note, the way that this show handles sex is actually really great, like as a whole. They definitely throw the word slut and skank around like it is 2006. But that aside, at the start of the show, Lori is in the situationship to end all situationships, oh, poor girl, with this kid Declan. And Declan is sort of painted to be like standard TV, like teenager kind of player douchebag kind of guy, and he can't commit, and Lori like wants him to be her boyfriend, and she is like kind of just contemplating like if she is ready to lose her virginity to him. And they have like a lot of really open, candid conversations about virginity and like having sex and like whether or not someone's ready and what that feels like. They also talk about like wanting to do some stuff and not everything, and like going back and forth, and like the fact that like it's really not that great the first time, like having a really bad first time, and that not being the end of the fucking world. Lori and Declan have sex for the first time at a party towards the end of season 1, and it's like not great because they're teenagers and it's the first time and they're in like the woods at a party, and it's like not great, but it doesn't ruin her. She's not like broken by it. Like, she's not like permanently scarred. She's not sexually broken. She's just like, oh, that was disappointing, and I wish that we had done that differently, and I don't want to do it again. And they don't. Like, they get together, they get properly together, and they're just like, I don't think I want to do that. I think we should wait. And they do.
Don't worry, Dad. Store's closed. Of course, we're still encouraging window shopping because we always want to keep the public interested, but I can assure you that tonight will not be about sex.
And Declan also has like a nice little character arc about like, oh, Declan just invited her to this party because he's trying to get her in her pants, and like some guys make some lewd remarks about her, and he like defends her, and he's like, no, we didn't even do anything, because he doesn't want her reputation to get like fucked up. And later he's like, hey, like I also have feelings, like I also would like to not be doing this weird half-ass thing. I also would like to just like be in a committed relationship with you. Can you stop treating me like I am cheating on you or like a player? And it's just really cute, okay? It's really sweet. And talked about Josh and his girlfriend. They also go back and forth a lot about like wanting to lose their virginity, whether they're ready, whether they're not ready. What I think is really interesting about their relationship is that like they're like very open about it. They have a lot of discussions. They plan for prom night, right? Like they like make the plan, and it gets down to the wire. And Josh is the one who is like, actually, you know, I don't know if I'm ready, and I don't think we should do this. And they don't. And then like, because he's a 14-year-old, 15-year-old boy, he like immediately regrets it. He immediately regrets that. Then she's like, well, now I kind of am on your side. I kind of am like, oh no, I don't actually also don't want to do this. And they just talk about how they're like, oh, there's like all this pressure, and like, what should we do? And then eventually just the moment is right, and they just do it because they love each other. And it's very, very sweet. And then they also take a break. They both take turns being like, I actually want to hit pause on that for now. And then they do it again, and then they start again. It's very candid and honest. I was very surprised by it with this like 2006 ABC Family show. I was also surprised by this Sour Patch Kids product placement.
Kyle XY is brought to you by Sour Patch Kids. Sour, sweet, gone.
That's the bit. That's the bit. There is so much Sour Patch Kids product placement in this show. It's hilarious.
We were approached by Sour Patch Kids to say, hey, is there a way that you could integrate bring the product into the show, and we didn't want to do it unless we could do it really naturally and make it feel really as much of a part of the character.
If you go to abcfamily.com to the Kyle Continuum, you may have seen this interactive moment with Matt Dallas where he helps you navigate the site. A little trick for you there. If you wait a little while, he's going to reach in his pocket and grab what?
A package of Sour
A package.
Josh eats a whole bunch of Sour Patch Kids, and he keeps them in the same drawer where he hides all his porn. They talk about Josh having hidden porn all the time, too, which I think is funny. Parents are just kind of like, don't ask, don't tell, like, I didn't see it. There's also a point in the show where, like, Josh gets really high, and the Traegers are like, where did he get that? What did he? And then they realize that it's their weed. It's their weed that he smoked. He smoked his parents' weed because he found it in their house. So they're like, fuck, we can't. Like, how are we gonna yell at him for smoking our weed?
Last time you had that look, you realized Josh just found your old pot stash.
They also go sneaking in Josh's room at one point because they're looking for his Kyle file, which is like the list of weird things that Kyle can do that we also have. They're like, nothing we find in here can be used against him. We're not doing this to get him in trouble. We're doing it for to help Kyle or whatever, which is probably a good thing, right? Because Kyle certainly needs some guidance. Kyle needs some guidance in that department. Kyle does not have sex. Kyle never has sex because Kyle is Jesus. But Kyle does get boners. Kyle gets a boner like in public at the swimming pool, and he just has no fucking idea what's going on, and it's so funny and so awkward and so embarrassing. The inciting incident to the swimming pool boner of 2006 is this girl named Amanda. Amanda is the next door neighbor to the Traegers, quite literally the girl next door. She is probably the worst character on the show, and it's not her fault necessarily. She is the girl next door, so she is perfect. Very, very sweet. She plays piano. She's a Catholic. Her dad died. Kyle is obsessed with her. Kyle is obsessed with Amanda right away, which is like a bummer because she is in a relationship. She is in a relationship with none other than Finn Hudson. I forgot that Corey Monteith was on the show, and it was actually really, really sad. It was really sad to see him, like, on the screen, because he was good. He was, like, he was basically playing Finn, but, like, yeah, it was just like, aw, I forgot that he, like, did other stuff. Glee took up so much of his career that it just reminded me that, like, oh, we're never gonna get to see him do anything else. We don't really get to see, like, where his career could have gone after that, and it's just kind of sad. Corey Monteith plays Charlie. Charlie is a decent guy-ish. He cheats on Amanda, and he cheats on Amanda with Hillary. Hillary is Laurie's best friend and also worst enemy at the same time, always, constantly, but he doesn't want to break up with her because he feels bad that her dad is dead. So, like, not justification, but, like, teenager logic. The only problem with this is that, like, everyone knows but Amanda. Everyone knows except for Amanda, including Kyle. And Kyle tries to tell her a couple of times, but he chickens out, and he's like, I don't know if you want to hear it from me. And when she does eventually find out, she's like, is this what you wanted to tell me? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, you didn't think I want to hear it from you? And she, like, is really mad about it. I'm telling you this because I want you to know that Kyle very clearly knows that Amanda does not like when he keeps secrets from her. And Kyle is a super genius. So when they eventually start dating and she starts getting kidnapped and threatened and he starts missing all of their dates because of other weird company sci-fi adventures that he has to go on, he should know that she is not going to like that he's not telling her. There is no reason for him to think that not telling her is protecting her in any way. She's being kidnapped already. It's too late. And it's not like she would break up with him when she found out. This is a band. This is Catholic, sweet, perfect, pure, kind, like music piano playing Amanda. She's Mary Sue. She's perfect. So it makes no sense that he does this, except for the fact that the show needs conflict. And as a result, Amanda becomes so annoying because she's constantly getting mad about the fact that he's not telling her stuff, and she's constantly mad about something. She's constantly whining, which, like, she has a right to do, but it just doesn't make any fucking sense in the context of the show, and it's so annoying. This is frustrating particularly because it's not something that the show does very often. Like, they really don't have the characters act out of character or, like, manufacture conflict like this very often, because, like, a teenage boy being hunted by a super company because he's got telekinesis is like conflict enough, you know? The only time that they do this, where they have characters like deliberately pretend they don't know things or make insane choices, is when it comes to Kyle's like romantic relationships. Because he does it here with Amanda, and they also do it with Jessi. Everyone does it with Jessi, but we love Jessi, and we are giving Jessi the attention that she deserves in her own section later. So the reason I think that they do this, though, I think they do this because they have created the perfect boy. They have created a blank slate, a perfect character.
That's the central premise of the whole show, the whole character. You know, it's about somebody who starts life as a blank slate and is able to look at the world and see things with a fresh set of eyes and with perspective that we all perhaps have become sort of jaded to and disillusioned by, or just things that we generally take for granted.
He is a genius, right? He's super smart. He's super capable of anything and everything. He has no past trauma. He is a superhero. He is a superhero of the soul.
And I think it's one of the sort of bittersweet tragedies of being a superhero of the soul.
So superhero of the soul is something that like the writers and the creators of this show say a lot in like interviews and behind the scenes. Kyle is a superhero of the soul, which like would be great if he wasn't also just a superhero. You know what I mean? I feel like you don't need to specify that he's a superhero of the soul because he can fly. It took me to my like second watch through to be like, oh, I think I understand what they're going for, because there's like a scene in season 2, I think. Kyle has been away from the Traegers and since come back. They're at a bonfire and a girl is trapped in a burning building. Kyle goes in and saves her, and when he comes out, he is not at all burned. He's totally like Hayden Panettiere in Heroes, fine. And he's like really worried they're gonna send him away, like he's just trying to be normal. He's like, please, like don't tell anyone. Because here's the thing, Nicole was like not hanging when Kyle was gone. Nicole was not okay. She deteriorated. So she's like, oh, if it means that I get to keep you, nobody has to know that you can walk through fire. And during this exchange, Kyle is like, I don't want to be different. I want to be normal. And she is like, Kyle, you just ran into a burning building to save someone you don't know. There's nothing normal about that. Sorry, the ship has sailed for normal. And that's what I think they mean when they're like superhero of the soul, is that like his ability is not just the walking through fire, it's like the fact that he went in, right? Like he has like an instinctive kindness and empathy and openness that spreads into the people around him, that like teaches everyone around him, right? Kyle is a good person, so everybody around him wants to be good people because Kyle is Jesus. And do you think Jesus would be a bad boyfriend? No. No, he would not. Jesus would be a great boyfriend. So Kyle can't be a bad boyfriend. And if Kyle can't be a bad boyfriend and Amanda is perfect and Amanda can't be a bad girlfriend, then like they need some kind of juicy relationship conflict somehow. So they have to force him to act in a way that doesn't make any fucking sense and keep all of these secrets from Amanda so that he can be a superhero of the soul, I think is what they were going for. I don't know, okay? I don't know. I don't like it. Moving on. Because there's still only so much plot that you can squeeze out of a genius computer kid who's never seen a lemon and only has read encyclopedias. There's only so much plot you can squeeze out of that, so eventually Kyle joins the basketball team, just like Jesus would have, and he's really good at it because he can do all the calculations in his brain and is super strong, so he's a great basketball player, and he gets to join right before the big game, because there's a big game, because of course there's a big game, it's ABC Family. Amidst the big game, one of his friends gets hurt, and the coach starts yelling at him to like keep playing on his injury, and Kyle inspires everyone to like, I am Spartacus, sit down, pretend to be injured, throw the big game, so that the coach gets like his comeuppance. This episode is dubbed the basketball episode by fans and is towards the end of the first season like a big turning point in the show, because this is when Kyle gets the like final check mark of like being normal. Like he learned how to use his body, learned how to walk and talk, he learned all the things from the encyclopedia, and now he learned how to make friends. So he is a real boy, TM, and now that he's not walking around like a newborn fall, he starts to be like, you know, what is going on? Why don't I have a belly button? why can't I do advanced physics and calculus in my head instantaneously, but I can't remember anything from the first 16 years of my life? What's going on there? Because everybody thinks he has amnesia, which is insane. It's an insane thing, but like what other options do they have? Grown in a lab? No, everyone thinks that he just has amnesia. So when these two whack jobs show up with a positive paternity test calling him their missing son Noah, who's to argue? Kyle. Kyle is actually to argue, because Kyle is like, hold on, you're telling me that my super hearing induced seizure, we'll get to it, and chloroform will trigger memories of a very traumatic night in my life, but hugging my literal parents, nothing. Zip. Not a ghost of a memory, not a vague impression of possibly having known these people that he was supposedly raised by. He's very sus, okay? But he is also, well and truly, it is pouring rain. It is pouring rain outside, and it's so loud. It's very on theme. Okay, I'm gonna finish this section. Kyle is very sus of these two strangers, but he's also like knee deep in the passenger seat of some weird, evil, secret company shit that is going on. You know, he's been digging, and he's like, this is not great. So when a mysterious pastor sits next to him in a church and happens to tell him that even if he isn't a believer, he does have a maker who wants him to have the answers, a totally normal pastor-like thing to say, Kyle thinks about Jesus and is like, you know what? Maybe that guy had the right idea. So he fakes some childhood memories and goes off with this mysterious couple who are playing along, and they like ride off into the distance, never to be seen again. No, I'm kidding. He comes back. Of course he comes back. He's Jesus.
What if Kyle did come out and become a great, for lack of a better word, spiritual leader? And his teachings were passed on for centuries after this.
It's not complicated. It's simple. I'll do everything in my power to live by the truth.
He was going to be able to do a lot of things to really change the world. Like Gandhi, you'd never know how that could have ended up, but definitely everybody would have known about him by the time he was gone from this earth.
Part 3. Kyle XYtended universe. Throughout the last two sections of this video, you may have found yourself saying, wow, that person looks so familiar, over and over and over and over and over again. And that is not your fault. That is because Kyle XY is a show that is made up almost entirely out of people that were in that one thing that one time. The entire cast is people that you vaguely recognize from supporting roles in other things. So before we really dive into the lore of where exactly Kyle came from and all of that, I thought we should take a little break and dive into the Kyle XY extended universe. Steven Traeger, the dad, is played by Bruce Thomas, who was the UPS guy in Legally Blonde 1 and 2, and also apparently has a very strong video game career. So he is like the physical body and the voice of a bunch of video game characters. Apparently a big deal there. We also have Lori. Lori is played by April Matson, who was in that show Quintuplets, which you probably didn't watch, but you probably saw a lot of trailers for. She's also been in several Christmas movies of the Lifetime variety. I don't know if they're actually Lifetime movies, but they're like Lifetime-esque. And she made like the episode rounds of like Psych and NCIS and all of that stuff. She also has a brief little singing. She does write some songs for the show. And her situationship turned boyfriend Declan, however, this is where it gets interesting, because her situationship boyfriend person Declan, played by Chris Olivero, who was in the Disney Channel original movie Now You See It, which is a wild movie about a teenage run magic competition reality show. Like, the premise of Now You See It is like Ali Mashaka of Ali and AJ fame is a wannabe TV producer, and so she gets accepted to be part of a kid run reality show to find the next best kid magician. It is also the spiritual prequel to Now You See Me with Jessi Eisenberg from whatever year that's from. Because if you really think about it, Danny, who is the teenage magician in Now You See It, he has like real magic and he gets targeted and it gets him into all kinds of trouble and it's very dangerous. So it only makes sense that he grows up to be Mark Ruffalo's character, pretending to be an FBI agent in order to find good magicians but keep it a secret. Plus he knows how to make a magic show. He knows what it takes. He knows how important it is to keep the secrets secret. I'm just saying. I don't know if the timeline works out. If they can do magic, they can time travel, you know? Speaking of magic, late season 2 or season 3, we meet a character called Cassidy. He is played by Hal Ozan, who did one episode of a show called Deception. Deception was a television show about a magician who starts working with the cops and detectives to catch criminals who are pulling off massive crimes using magician tactics. Because apparently the old-fashioned way of holding up a liquor store with a gun is not effective anymore. So all the criminals in New York have graduated to large-scale body-swapping, mirrors, fake fire, elaborate Rube Goldberg schemes in order to pull off their petty crimes. It got canceled after one season, and I am so upset about it. Hillary is played by Shaylin Simmons, who is a scream queen. Scream queen. Move over, Emma Roberts. Shaylin Simmons was in Final Destination 3. She is the girl who catches on fire in the tanning bed. Iconic. The best scene of any Final Destination, the best death in any horror movie. So that's where you recognize her from. And if not that, it could be from the 2002 movie Carrie, or one of several shark-related horror movies that she starred in. Speaking of Final Destination, one of the writers of Final Destination, Eric Bress, is the creator and writer for Kyle XY, and that's not the only Final Destination crossover. You know who else was in Final Destination for a whole 36 seconds? Corey Monteith. It's all coming full circle. Kristen Zen, who plays Amanda, it might be Jen or Zian, I don't know how to pronounce her name, I'm sorry. She was also in the Twilight Saga Eclipse. She plays a character called Lucy, who is part of the Civil War flashbacks that Jasper has. She's one of the white vampire ladies who like escapes to a vampire cult in Mexico or something like that. And it's bonkers, but it does in fact make her the coolest person on this list, so congratulations. That said, that is not where you recognize her. I think the main reason that she looks familiar is because she looks like Bridget Mendler, but she is not Bridget Mendler. I say that because I could have sworn that she played Meg in Veronica Mars, because when I watched Veronica Mars, Meg, I thought was Bridget Mendler, but then realized it couldn't be Bridget Mendler, and then I was like, oh, she just looks like Bridget Mendler. And now I'm realizing that like looks like Bridget Mendler is just like a type. So it's an ever-growing list. Amanda's mother is played by Terrell Rothery, who was Timmy's mom in the live-action Fairly Odd Parents movie. She was also in a couple episodes of Travelers, which if you have been on my Patreon for a while, you know that I love Travelers. Travelers is one of my favorite time travel shows ever. She also did a couple episodes of Arrow, one episode of... What did I say? What did I call it in the Midnight Mouse video? I think I called it like the gayest thing since Barbie? And Barbie and what's the gayest Barbie movie? Diamond Castle. I think I said that, I think I called The Haunting of Bly Manor the gayest thing since Barbie and the Diamond Castle movie. Anyway, she was in Bly Manor for a couple of episodes. And most importantly, she was in Flicka Country Pride, the third installment of the horse therapist movie franchise, if you were vaguely horse girl adjacent as a child. Martin Cummings is in this show as Brian Taylor, and he was also Kevin's dad in Riverdale, as well as his shining moment in the critically acclaimed Radio Rebel with Debbie Ryan, who starred alongside Josh, Jean-Luc Bilodeau. He was in 16 Wishes with Debbie Ryan, which is the Disney Channel 13 going on 30, but taking the really long way around to get there. And he was also in LOL in 2012 with Miley Cyrus, and as an adult was a star of Baby Daddy. Baby Daddy is a show which features none other than Kyle himself, Matt Dallas, for a couple of episodes. Matt Dallas was also in Beauty and the Briefcase with Hilary Duff and Jennifer Coolidge, circle it back to Legally Blonde, as well as the Katy Perry music video, Thinking of You, which is the like court-ordered pop star in the late 2000s Soldier Returns from War video that they all like had to make, I think. Most importantly, however, as far as Matt Dallas is concerned, 2005 appearance in a film called Way of the Vampire, aka Van Helsing vs. Dracula. A movie whose comment section says, if you're into low-budget crappy movies, this movie's for you. If not, a waste of time. Which, I mean, this is such an insane movie that I may or may not do a whole Patreon video on it. I don't know. I can't promise anything, but it's a bonkers fucking movie. And Matt Dallas is only in it for like 30 seconds, I think, in like the back of this one scene where they're like beating each other up in a parking, no, is it a junkyard? It's like a junkyard / parking lot situation, I think. Whatever, that's his most important credit. But Kyle was also featured in a Rhett and Link video. They did a music video parody thing called My Belly Button, and he pops in at the end to be belly buttonless Kyle, because that is the most iconic thing about this show, is the lack of belly button. Other than that, he does not have a lot of acting credits. He does, however, have a YouTube channel. So, hi Matt. Obviously, he's gonna watch this. He and his husband have like a family channel, but without their kids, really. I don't think they exploit their children too much. Actually, I stand corrected. When I was pulling those screenshots, it looks like every like third or fourth video of theirs seems to be including their children in the thumbnail or like the concept, but I don't know. It could be worse, but it could also be better. Yeah, they're just, you know, two like gay, like lumberjack gays. They do a lot of like building. They're building decks. They sell like musky candles, and they get a little X-rated on that YouTube channel of theirs. So it's definitely not what I was expecting, but good for them. They seem happy. He seems sweet. I also found out that he was in the closet when they were doing Kyle XY because people told him that it would kill his career if the world found out that he was gay, which we'll talk about more when we talk about the gay stuff in Kyle XY, but I will say here that Matt Dallas was outed by fucking Perez Hilton. He continued to like deny that for a while because people were telling him that his career would be ruined if he was out, and that sucks. Yeah, but I'm happy that we now live in a world where Matt Dallas can go and, you know, be a happy little gay house builder with his happy little gay house builder husband, and they can make videos like this, and hopefully they are not exploiting their children. I didn't watch enough of their videos to know, but let's see. J. Eddie Peck, who plays Adam Balin, was on Days of Our Lives and The Young and the Restless for like 400 episodes each, which is crazy. And you probably didn't watch it if my demographics are correct, but you probably did see it on in the background when you were in the waiting room with one of your parents for some kind of appointment, or you saw it on the screen in your grandmother or grandfather's house, or if you ever had to go to like the DMV, it might have been on. You probably encountered it at some point. Leah Cairns, who we meet in season 2, she plays Kate Hollander. She was also in Travelers as the one and only Catherine McLaren. We love Catherine. We love Catherine if you love Travelers. Conrad Coates, who we meet in season 2, he plays one of the heads of one of the evil companies that we deal with. He was in Degrassi, and he played Mr. Brooks, as well as in a movie called Mommy's Prison Secret, which, if you haven't seen the Jane Mulcahy video, I don't know if that's how you pronounce the name. Her videos on both Degrassi and the like Mommy's Little X or Mommy's XYZ Lifetime movies, please do. And this guy was on Fargo too. Bill Dow is the professor who gets murdered in season 1 of Kyle XY. He was in 2 of the 50 Shades movies, the second 2 though, so you probably didn't see it. But mostly I think that he just looks familiar because he looks like the guy from The Princess Bride who is like inconceivable. Nicholas Leah plays Foss. Both him and Bill Dow were in like a handful of episodes of a 1992 television show called Highlander, and Highlander is fucking nuts, you guys. Highlander is about like a 400-year-old crime-fighting immortal who is like reluctantly taking out bad guys of both the also immortal and not immortal variety in modern day like New York City, I think, using a sword. Oh, also he was in Fall of the House of Usher, which I know I promised you guys I was going to make a video on it. I don't know when that's going to happen. I can't believe I forgot to put this in here. I thought that I put it in another section, but I never filmed it. Nicole is played by Caroline's mom from The Vampire Diaries. Last but not least, we have Andy. Andy is last on this list because Andy is played by Magda Apanowicz. And she was in a couple episodes of Travelers as well. And she was also in a handful of episodes of You on Netflix. But most importantly, Magda Apanowicz was in the 2004 thriller The Butterfly Effect. She plays teen punk girl. And The Butterfly Effect was written by the same guy who wrote Final Destination 3 and Kyle XY. Let me tell you something about The Butterfly Effect. The Butterfly Effect stars Ashton Kutcher. And I remember this movie as being good. But when I looked it up, apparently it was like dragged through the mud by critics. And also, when I read the synopsis, it is like a trauma dumping ground. It is like apparently super indulgent and like not particularly good. But that's it. That's the full circle. That's everything that you need to know. Part 4, Franken-Einstein. All right, so let's get into the lore for a minute. The convoluted plot surrounding the science experiment that is Kyle XY. Because even though Kyle is Jesus, Kyle is not actually Jesus. Kyle is not actually the son of God. He is the son of a man playing God. Throughout season 1, the Traegers just think that they have like a weird insomniac, amnesia-ridden genius boy wonder as their foster kid. Like that's all that they think is going on. Whereas the audience get to be privy to this guy Foss, who we mentioned earlier. Foss, who is running around and lurking and being sneaky. And we're not just privy to like what he's doing when he's like interacting with the Traegers. We also like see him on like mysterious phone calls. He says like, I'll take care of it, or he's remembering, and things like that. We see him being very shady with this mysterious company organization. Weird symbols are that he has that Kyle is remembering, and also he has like full Jake Ballard camera video mic system set up inside the Traeger's house, and he is spying on them. So sus. And also like a big problem because Kyle has been having, right, memories and dreams and is sort of drawing them. He has this weird memory from the night in the woods when he was found with this guy's face like peeking through. And at first we think that it might be Foss. That's what we're like led to believe. But it turns out that it's not Foss. It is Professor Kern, who we mentioned in the last section, looks vaguely like the guy from The Princess Bride. Professor Kern is a local professor, and he went missing about 4 months ago, right when Kyle showed up in the woods, okay? So yeah, he's the body in the forest and the dude in the pictures that Kyle is drawing. So the cops assume the professor was just killed by like some desperate, unstable drug users or something like that, right? And they're like, cool, done and dusted, let's move on because that is a crime that we have solved. And Kyle, however, Kyle is like, no, I would really like some answers about my past because I am a crazy genius boy and I don't have a belly button. So like if somebody showed up dead around me, I think that there's probably a reason. So he goes to do hypnotherapy, and the hypnotherapy triggers his memory, and he remembers that it was Foss who shot the professor in the woods. So now we've got Foss, the professor, and freshly released from the tube Kyle, all in the woods. Boom. We are on a field trip, okay? Declan and Lori and Kyle all go to the local university to like stay for the weekend to like tour the college because parents love that shit. But really, they're like touring the archives and they're like digging up some dirt on this professor. And they stumble upon a photograph from the 1980s of Kyle. Okay, it's not of Kyle. It's of a guy who looks exactly like Kyle. And this guy that looks exactly like Kyle is Adam Balin. Adam Balin is a genius prodigy research scientist dude who worked with Kern on a big secret project and has been missing for the last like 20 years or 16 years, something. He's been missing for a while, presumed dead, right? But he's not dead. He is very much alive. He is alive for now. He is living now in luxurious hiding, like whatever the glamping equivalent of like the witness protection program is, like glitness protection, right? Like he is living in secret, but like in secret in style, where apparently he is only allowed out of his hiding in order to like impersonate a priest at a random girl's confirmation so that he can give very poignant Yoda-like speeches to this random kid. They don't really explain that. If you haven't put it together, Kyle is Adam's experiment. Adam is the guy who made Kyle. And so Adam and Kyle strike up like a Yoda Luke Karate Kid mentor-mentee relationship throughout like the beginning of season 2, because he's trying to teach him how to use all of these magic powers that he has, because Adam Balin can also do this weird shit. Which is sus, because we thought that Kyle could do the weird shit because he was a fetus for 16 years. But if this other guy can do it, what's going on there? Turns out that Adam Balin, the lore of this, I don't, buckle up, okay? The lore for these experiments is as follows. According to the show, alleged Albert Einstein, the Albert Einstein, was kept in the womb for an extra 3 weeks. And because of this, he theorized that was why he was so smart. So he supposedly worked on secret experiments on primates in the 1920s, trying to keep feti in the womb for longer, but didn't really work, and he abandoned the project, and then he like died in 1955. Meanwhile, because it's the 50s in the United States, some other research scientists pick up the mantle of this keep a living thing in a womb for longer to make it smarter thing. Because it clearly worked so well with primates, they are like, we should just use people. So they immediately start testing this on human women and human embryos. All of the women and all of the babies die because this is insane and very dangerous. All of them die except for one.
After many failures, there was one successful pregnancy. What happened to the child? You're looking at him.
Adam Balin. He's the one. He's the one. He's the boy who lived. So he is kept in the womb for 13 months, which is why he can also like move shit with his brain and is a genius.
A healthy 13-month gestation. Unfortunately, the surrogate mother died when the child was born.
Adam had a mother, and his mother died in childbirth or because of the experiment. Because keeping a baby in your body for 13 months is fucking insane. So he has like all this, guilt about existing. So he sets out to like make it his life's mission that he's gonna figure out how to do this without killing the mother. Therefore, he invented the fake womb fluid stuff to keep a fetus alive without a mother. Therefore, no umbilical cord. Therefore, no belly button. As far as like sci-fi explanations taking like a crumb and turning it into a 4-course meal, this is up there. This is way up there in terms of suspension of disbelief, right? But it is also borderline defamation. I wanted to fact check this because I was like, that's crazy. But like, it kind of makes sense, You're like, oh yeah, if you keep something, in the womb, maybe just your brain, develops. And like Einstein was really smart. So like, maybe there's something to this. No, not even a little bit. Einstein was not kept in the womb for an extra couple weeks. In fact, he was probably born premature. The length of time that he spent in the womb certainly had nothing to do with his brain being spectacular. Mostly because his brain wasn't spectacular. You want to know how I know that? Because somebody stole it one time. Somebody stole Einstein's brain. Albert Einstein's brain was missing for a period of time, and this is that story. Allegedly, he wanted it to be studied, although that is up for debate, apparently. He never put it in writing. Allegedly, he was like, yeah, go for it. See if there's something fishy going on. But technically speaking, his family did not consent to the study of his brain post-mortem. when they sent his body to be sort of autopsied and cremated as soon as possible, because they didn't want like a cult building around his like funeral and all of that stuff. So they tried to get it done really quickly. And so it was like super illegal when the doctor performing the autopsy removed his brain and put it in a jar before sending the body for cremation. He just took it. I found mixed reports about what happened after this. Some people say that the family were not happy about it. There were a couple of sources that said that the son like gave his blessing after he found out that it happened. They were like, he was like, oh no, that's fine. And that's probably good. Let's do that. Either way, there was like an article posted. Oh my God, it's 1950, whatever. They weren't posting articles, published in a newspaper about how they were going to study and find the secret to genius in his brain. And then crickets. Nothing, nada, zip, zilch. We don't hear anything about Einstein's brain for like 20 something years. It's not until some dude hears about the rumor that his brain was extracted after the autopsy, and he happens to run a newspaper. So he sends one of his reporters and is like, go find me Einstein's brain. And the reporter's like, it's missing? And he's like, yeah, go find it. And the reporter fucking does. He does. He finds it. So he goes and he does all this investigation, all kinds of like mysterious whispers. And he eventually tracks down the doctor who did the autopsy. And he's like, what happened to the brain? And the doctor is just sort of like, well, come over here, let me show you something. And he pulls out a jar with Einstein's brain stems. He just kept it. He just kept it. The guy's just like, I have it. I have it in a jar. I have it in a lot of jars because it's cut into 240 some pieces that we're gonna study. And then they published that article, and apparently the family was like, don't make a thing out of this. We don't want this published everywhere. Da, da, da. So he just kind of like had to take it underground. He's just been chilling, sitting on these jars full of brains in his basement, supposedly in like cider boxes, like boxes for cider. And basically after they published the article, it's all out in the open. So they finally study it, and they published their first study in like 1985, where the glial cells are like slightly abnormal, but the general consensus is that they're not abnormal enough for it to like be a thing. They're like, oh well, it would be more weird if there wasn't at least one weird thing about his brain. His brain is normal. His brain is boring. There's nothing special about his brain. So all of Kyle XY is built on a lie. I also read that the guy who had his brain in the jars, it like almost ruined his marriage at one point. He like had to pack all of the jars of brain up into boxes and flee with them because his wife was threatening to get rid of them. And he was like, my brains! It's just fucking bonkers. But yeah, so they published that study in 1985, and it's not a big deal. But what is a big deal is that in 1985, in the lore of Kyle XY, Adam Bailyn disappears. Basically, he doesn't like disappear. He just goes kind of dark to work on this secret Kyle experiment thing. So him and Professor Kern found a company called Jessi to do all of this research, and they are funded by a company called Latnock. Well, I say company.
It was supported by a secret group of visionaries, great humanitarians, known as Latnock. Latnock? It's Hungarian. It means the prophet. It means the prophet.
They're not really a company. They're like a secret society, like Knights of the Round Table, Knights Templar, kind of like, we are, secret innovators and geniuses who are, trying to change and save the world via effective altruism or whatever. And so they are kind of funding Jessi's research into, can we make 16-year-old fetuses or not? I say, can we make 16-year-old fetuses or not? That was not the goal. At least that's not what Adam Balin thought was going on. Adam Balin thought that they were just trying to find a safe way to do it so that they could keep babies in for like a little bit longer and then they could be born and then he could have friends. But he basically like disappears in 1985, mostly because nobody hears from him, again, because he's so busy working on this experiment. Why top secret, you ask? Well, it's top secret because they start working on this shit in 1985 and Kyle is subject 781227. Which is a lot of numbers for an only child. Most of the subjects died. Most of them died. Kyle is the only one that survived. He's the boy who lived as well. You know, Adam Balin is at first like stoked about this because he is trying to make himself a family. And he is like, oh wow, I've created life. I am God. And Jessi is like, sick. Let's use the child as a supercomputer for weapons manufacturing, war prediction, shady nasty stuff. Adam is like, can we not? Like, do we have to? Do we have to do that? And they're like, yes, we do. And they kick him the fuck out, which is when he goes into proper luxury hiding. But he doesn't go into hiding alone. He doesn't do all this alone. He has one particularly very special friend named Foss. Foss has a first name, I forget what it is. He and Foss are like this. They are so close. They're as close as 19th century romantic poets. You know what I mean? Like, they are the best of friends, and they definitely boned at least once. At least once. According to the show, they're just very good friends. So Foss gets a job at Jessi in security in order to keep an eye on Adam Balin's little mini-me clone in the tank. To summarize, Adam and Professor Kern go into business together in the 80s with Jessi in order to try and make Kyle. Whatever 2006 minus 16 is year, they succeed. Kyle is like a baby and in the tank when they decide to be evil with the company. So they kick Adam Balin out. Adam Balin's boyfriend Foss gets a job with Jessi to watch over Kyle. 16 years later, it's 2006, Jessi is using Kyle as a supercomputer and some shit goes down. The professor or somebody betrays somebody and Foss gets Kyle out of Jessi. He is trying to rescue Kyle. I think they're gonna like terminate Kyle or something like that. And he rescues him, basically takes him out of the pod and is gonna take him to Adam. That's where they're supposed to be going so that he can raise his 16-year-old fetus to be a super brain genius like him so he doesn't feel alone. However, whilst he is escaping with his goo-covered 16-year-old baby, he crosses paths with Kern. They get into an altercation. Foss shoots Kern. Kyle runs away, I think, you know, in his mysterious naked stupor and passes out in the woods, wakes up, starts wandering, finds the couple that are having sex, wanders into the street, goes to Juvie, goes to the Traegers. Here we are. So that's that. Now, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is probably one of, if not the richest text ever written. It is so juicy. It is full of layers on layers on layers on layers, right? Like, you can read anything into anything is like our motto here. Frankenstein is like purest example of that. There's so much that you can read into Frankenstein. And as a person who for a long time just pretended to have read Frankenstein because I felt like I knew enough about it, I highly recommend you do actually read it, because when I did actually read it, I found it much easier to read than I anticipated. And it is just like full of subtext and so much. It's so good. It's so good. Where was I going with this? Oh, it's one of the richest texts in the world. It's second only to like the Bible. You know what I mean in terms of like how much you can read into it. If you don't know, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein follows Victor Frankenstein. He cobbles together a body out of body parts that he like steals. He uses electricity and science, and he creates life. He brings this creature to life, and it is an 8-foot tall giant corpse, and he freaks the fuck out and runs away from it, abandoning the creature. The creature is like, bro. They enter into a long, like, cross-country battle over nature and nurture and responsibility and vengeance and love, and they fight back and forth until they die, pretty much. It's about a lot of things, and it's also a novel that we can very much, like, place in its context, like, to the day, right? Like, to the date and time. Like, we know when the first story for it was written. It was like a famously, you know, chronicled, written down. People acknowledged it, weather storm thing, and she was like with Percy Shelley and some other people, including you know who, because of course he was there. There's also like all of this evidence of her having written it based on this dream that she had. She lost a baby and she kept having dreams that they brought it to life by just like bringing it to a fire and giving a little smack on the butt. This is also a time when like anatomy is studied by people stealing corpses. Like that's how they were learning what the body was, and they were learning medicine and science. There's a lot of interesting like scientific discoveries, and it's very present in the novel, like the scientific ideas and what people were interested in and curious about and what was going on in the world at the time technologically. But at its core, it is about motherhood and like the concerns that women who are having babies, especially at that time, have. What will I create? What will it be? What if I don't love my baby? Because that's a thing that has always been happening. They call it postpartum depression now, but they didn't have a name for it. A lot of babies die. A lot of women die in childbirth. Childbirth is really, really scary at the time. It was not a thing that you always made it out of. And the mortality of infants was super, super high. Only like one of Mary Shelley's children, I think, lived to adulthood. And there's also this like concern about like, what if it's a monster? Like, what if I have a baby and it is evil? And like, what if it wants to kill me? What if it doesn't love me? What if it blames me for bringing it into this world? Frankenstein is very much about those concerns, and also 750,000 other things. But it's about those things, and it is in the context of when it's written in the 19th century. Even though I do think it takes place in the 17th century, 1700s. Yeah, I think that all the journals are like 17. So technically it's like late 18th, but whatever. That's just for the one person who's going to comment about it. I say all of that because like when you look at Kyle XY really is the show that dares to ask the question, what if Frankenstein were a 16-year-old white boy from Seattle? What if Frankenstein was in 2006? Like, what if a mad scientist creating life and like playing God, if that fear in the 19th century manifests as Frankenstein, what does that look like in, you know, the 21st century? Like I do kind of think that like Victor had to cobble together a corpse with body parts and, you know, shock it with a lightning bolt. We have in vitro, you know, we have artificial insemination and things like that already. We're already able to create embryos outside of the human body, so why not be able to grow them outside of the human body too? And when you take away the kind of ugliness of the monster, because Frankenstein is horrified mostly by how the monster looks. Like that's the big thing. It wakes up and he's like, oh, that's terrifying. Take that part away. Like if the creature that Frankenstein made was beautiful, would he have run away? And if not, like what would he have done? Additionally, because it's not the 19th century, Adam Bailyn is not a, 18th century misogynist. Victor Frankenstein is such an incel. Victor Frankenstein is terrified of women. He is terrified terrified of women. Half of the reason that he's doing all of this stuff is because he is like, if we can create life, then we don't need women anymore. And then I don't have to be scared of them killing me with their wiles. He's only ever really able to like embrace his lover after she's dead. Like she's a body and he's like finally able to like take her in his arms and grieve because he did love her, but like very, very afraid of women. And so like Kyle XY is kind of like, well, Frankenstein, but like not a raging misogynist and good person, because they keep saying that like Adam Balin is like really good. He's a good human. Like he's very empathetic and, you know, wants to make the world a better place, and is apparently, you know, known by everybody who knew him to be supremely caring and stuff like that. So if that guy acts as Frankenstein with the technology that we have, what do we get? And you do get a 16-year-old boy band-esque genius boy without a belly button. So I just think it's a really interesting parallel, because like it is Frankenstein. Like that is what it is. That is, he quite literally says, like, you know, they're talking about God at the time. He's like, even if you're not a believer in all of this Christ stuff, you certainly have a maker, because it is me and I'm sitting right here and I want to give you all of the answers.
There's someone out there who made you. In the midst of a confusing situation, you may not be able to see or appreciate him, but he's there, and he wants you to have the answers to all of your questions.
One of the other big sort of things about the Frankenstein story is that Victor abandons his creature. Like, that's the problem, right? The kind of philosophical thing, the reason that the creature ends up ruining Victor's life, and the reason that it is such a, like, sad story is because it is more or less evident that, like, this could have all been avoided. If you had just not run away from this thing that you brought into existence, that didn't ask to be brought into existence, if you didn't abandon that responsibility right away, then this creature who, you know, teaches itself to read and reads all these books probably wouldn't be so mad and wouldn't be killing your nephews and your wives and things like that. There are really extreme consequences to Victor's choice to abandon the thing that he made. But Adam's abandonment of Kyle was involuntary. He was sort of ousted, and he, you know, tries his best to like have somebody watch over him and like get him out. But he also says to Kyle, every time we tried to remove a subject from the tank, it died. And Kyle is like, subject? You mean baby? You mean child? It's me. I'm the child. To a degree, it is sort of out of Adam's control in a way that it wasn't out of Victor's control. The reason that Victor abandons his creation, you know, shame and, how do you say, lack of a backbone? Victor abandons his creature because he can't hack it. Adam Balin doesn't abandon his creation because he is ashamed and terrified and spineless. He abandons his creation because corporate greed and capitalism, dare I say, because it's these companies are like, oh no, we are going to use this thing, this subject, to do shady, nefarious supercomputer things. We're just going to use it as a tool. And Adam's like, well, can't we like make a person? And he's like, no, it's not. We're not giving it life. We're giving it purpose. The only thing that Adam Balin and Victor Frankenstein really have in common, despite playing the same role in the same story, is the God complex. Adam Balin is very much like a father figure to Kyle, and as soon as he's given the opportunity to fulfill that role, he willingly does, and he very much wants to embrace Kyle as being part of his life. And for all of Adam's, you know, waxing poetic about Latnock and, you know, their noble intentions and wanting to create a better world, because Kyle has this effect on people where he makes them see themselves and say their truth, when you get down to it, Adam created it because he was lonely, right? He made the creature, he made life, because he didn't want to be the only one who could do what he could do. He was lonely. He didn't have a mother. He didn't have anyone who had the skills that he had. He sees the world so differently. He wanted somebody who could see the world like him. It's not like forgivable. You know what I mean? Like Kyle definitely doesn't say like, oh, you should have led with that. Like, my bad. You were right. That makes sense. but it is enough for Kyle to like finally use the Force. I mean, use his brain. Sorry. He can finally move the water in the glass. Therefore, the glass moves as well, which is another kind of theme of this show, is like the idea that you change what's inside in order to move the thing that's outside. Like the reason Kyle can fly is because Kyle can control water, and he has to like spray the ground with a hose and get his feet wet so that he can use the water molecules and like repel them away from each other like magnets. But, you know, he can do that because he's controlling the water, and therefore his body is moving outside, like because it's being controlled by the water. In season 3 or 2, stops a character called Jessi from jumping off of a roof. Don't worry about it yet. And he does this by pulling the water molecules in her body away from the edge. He's bloodbending. He does bloodbending. And this is before they do bloodbending in Avatar: The Last Airbender. This is like at least a year before. But yeah, he does bloodbending, which is fucking wild and also very like sus. Like that doesn't seem like a thing you should be doing, Kyle. The show also has this theme of, you know, changing what's inside to change the outside, which is like kind of the like Latnock theology as well, and lines up with like Kyle making everybody be better people, right? Like if you change your inside, if you change who you are and how you behave in your like inner self, then the world around will change. If everybody is just trying to be better people, there will be less awful in the world. That's kind of the overall thing. So Kyle is finally able to use the Force and also to connect with his fake father creator thing. It's all wonderful for like 10 whole seconds before Adam Balin gets shot through the window of his supposedly super secret apartment place. This is not the first, nor will it be the last time that Adam Balin is presumed dead. Regardless, this is very heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for Kyle, even though Kyle did have problems with the fact that he was created by this man. He also was created by this man, and he did have like a connection to him and like a, you know, a father-son, Yoda, Luke relationship going on. It's very heartbreaking for Kyle. It's super heartbreaking for his life partner Foss, because I mean his husband just got killed. Like that's awful. Foss is like, I will avenge my lover's life, and he goes to Jessi to blow it up because he can, right? It's the middle of the night. He's like, there's nobody's gonna be there, so I'm not gonna hurt anyone, right? I'm just gonna ruin all of their science, because I mean, we got their big experiment subject 7 whatever XY. He's here with us, so like it's not like anybody's in danger there, right? You know, the fact that Kyle was subject 71227 XY does sort of beg the question of why. I mean, they have numbers, right? Why specify that Kyle is XY unless you also have an XX? Part 5, Jessi XXxoxoxoxox. We're going to start this section with one thing. We love Jessi here. We are team Jessi. We are pro Jessi. Jessi does nothing wrong. She does some things that are wrong, but we support Jessi's wrongs, okay? We support Jessi's rights and Jessi's wrongs. We love Jessi here. So remember that, because we are the only ones. So Jessi is subject XX, who was even more illegal and more top secret than XY, because even within Jessi and within Latnock, they were not supposed to be making another one. Somebody made her with like the DNA of this other woman named Sarah, this woman that he was like low-key in love with. She was in a relationship with Adam Balin as like college sweethearts, but they were not together long term, and they did not have any children. They're not siblings, okay? That's what I'm telling you. This is not a Mortal Instruments situation. They are not related. Sarah is sort of the equal but opposite to Adam Balin. So where Adam Balin is like clever and kind and empathetic and open and all that stuff, Sarah is brilliant, a genius as well, but also like very competitive, very fiery, very determined. She was a loose cannon
ran in a firecracker, right? She was very, I think they say unstable, but I'm gonna say a Sagittarius. She supposedly pushed herself too far and it resulted in her death. We don't really know what happened there. They just say like Sarah went too far and it cost her her life. So that is who Jessi is sort of modeled on. So Jessi is also like 16 and is in Zyzzyx when Foss blows it up. Her tank bursts, but if you remember, Kyle walks through fire. So like she's fine. Like she doesn't die, but she does sort of stumble out of a drainage pipe into the woods, which is immediately a problem. Immediately a bigger problem than Kyle was facing, because she is a teenage girl in this scenario. The actress is not a teenager, obviously, but teenage girl out in the woods. And the first thing that she encounters is a man camping alone. Of course, it's not a nice man, and he immediately tries to attack her, and there's like a violent altercation, and she kills him because he's trying to kill her, and he does not know that she is a super strong, superhuman lab experiment. If Kyle is the like perfect modern example of the Franken-Einstein story, Jessi is like the original creature. Like Jessi is the results of like being abandoned by your creator and chucked out into the world. The first thing that she encounters is violence. She does not have a family to teach her. She doesn't get taken in with like love and respect. Instead, what she gets is kidnapped. She gets captured by the company. I think it's Matacorp. Yeah, Matacorp at the time. They say bring her in. They send Kate Hollander because they know what she did in Iraq, because this is 2007 and 8. So like they drug and kidnap her, and they download fake memories and a fake life into her brain like it's a computer. And so she thinks that she is this Kate person's sister. Only Kate doesn't have a sister, and she doesn't know anything about this like childhood that, you know, Jessi keeps bringing up. Like she's eating mushrooms, and she's like, I have this memory of being severely allergic to mushrooms and almost dying. Like, why can I eat them now? And Kate's like, I don't know, shut up and eat your food. Like she's got this really confusing life. And whereas Kyle, when Kyle was like confused, people were like, oh yeah, like you are an amnesia boy who has clearly been through something, whatever it is. You're right to feel crazy. Whereas in Jessi's situation, like everybody's just gaslighting her constantly, because she's like, I feel weird, I feel different, I feel like everybody else is not doing the things that I'm doing. And she's being fully manipulated as well, like by both Matacorp and Kate, puppet stringing her to get her in with the Traegers. Like they sign her up for therapy with Nicole. So she's going to therapy with Nicole in the Traeger house. They send her to the same school. And so she ends up starting to date Declan. And she's just very much ingratiated with them. And not to mention the fact that like every time her and Kyle are in the same room, they're like, they have like sixth sense, telepathically mind meld connected because they're soulmates and they're supposed to be together. She's got this very confusing life. It couldn't be more opposite from what Kyle experienced. They do acknowledge this. Kyle's like, I don't trust Jessi, and they're like, well, she had a different life experience than you. Like, she clearly needs help. She needs, you know, people to love and support her. However, they seem to always immediately forget that they said that as soon as they say it. Watching the third season of this show specifically, but also a lot of the second with Jessi, is infuriating. Remember when I told you that Kyle like blood bends to stop her from jumping off a roof? If it doesn't click for you now, she would have been fine. She's a superhero. She and Kyle can jump from great heights. They can fly. They're fine. Like, she would have been fine. And the reason that she's going to jump off this roof, though, is because somebody caught her on video doing it another time because she was just, like, having a good time. They're like, that must have been a fake video. That must have been a fake effect. And she's like, excuse me? Like, you think I'm a liar? And they're like, prove it. And she's like, I fucking will. Kyle is so concerned about people finding out that he is different, that he stops her because he doesn't want anyone to know. And then he's like, you can't tell anybody about us. You can't tell anybody about what we are. We have to keep it a secret. And she's like, why? We're awesome. Like, why don't you want people to know how awesome we are? And he's like, I just want to be normal. And she's like, well, I don't. Like, I would love to be spectacular. And they're like, oh, Jessi. So it's like, it's a selfish thing that he's doing. And additionally, everyone will continue to do this for the rest of the show. It drives me absolutely fucking nuts. It's the same as that kind of thing that they did with Amanda, where it's like, why is no one telling her? There's no reason that any of these characters wouldn't be telling Amanda what's going on, but her being upset is like a conflict plot point, so they do it. Characters in this show learn the lesson of like, Jessi is a good person and we shouldn't be so mean to her over and over and over and over and over again. Or she'll say things like, you have a family that loves you, everybody has people that love them, and everybody just is afraid of me, and I don't know how to deal with that. That makes me lash out, and that makes more people afraid of me. I just want someone to be nice to me for 5 minutes. And everyone's like, you gotta stop being so crazy, and then they'll be nice to you for 5 minutes. Like, fuck off. Ugh. I get really, really heated about this. They will push her away from situations. They will lie to her. They will tell her to get out. They will tell her they don't trust her. And then they will turn around and be like, Jessi, I need your help. Of course she'll help them. She just wants to be loved and to build relationships. And then people will be like, oh my God, thank you, Jessi. Like, that's so nice. I'm so sorry. We can build a friendship. And then the next fucking episode, they treat her like shit again. It is crazy. It's so annoying. It's not even, I should stop talking about it because it's not even funny a bit anymore. It really drives me insane. Okay, anyway. Jessi is the foil to everyone. She is equal but opposite to Kyle, pretty much. I don't think she's like the super villain of the soul, because I don't think the show is intentionally trying to do that. I think that it's like a lazy writing thing, as opposed to like a villainization of Jessi completely. While you could make the argument for sure that like it plays into the like women are crazy and volatile and emotionally unstable stereotype or trope, I think that Kyle being the sweet, soft, sensitive boy that he is kind of antithetical enough to the traditional like hyper-masculine identity and trope of superheroes. It doesn't feel like a Jessi's crazy emotionally. It just feels like Jessi is stronger. She feels almost more traditionally masculine, but that's just me. You could totally feel another type of way about it. I think that she's just like a genius and competitive and a little bit emotionally unstable, which who isn't? Whereas Kyle was pretty like hesitant to get involved in the Jedi mind training, and he wasn't actually even really that good at the Jedi mind training. Jessi loves it. Like, Jessi really wants to get trained and wants to show off and wants to be presented to Latnock as like an achievement of science. She wants to be good. She gets really competitive playing pool and using her powers to like beat everybody at pool. She is in like a little coding competition, her versus Kyle at one point, and Stephen Traeger is there and he's like, that was really nice of you to let her win, Kyle. And he's like, I didn't. Like, she beat me. She beat him so fast that she solved the problem and then like went back and rewrote the problem so that everything that he did was null and void. Like, whatever that means. I don't know how coding works. Yeah, she's better than him is what I'm telling you. She's better than him at everything. But they have like fully like Kylo Ren, the Force connection. Like, they are in each other's brains. They can communicate long distances. There's a point where something is hidden in Kyle's head and Jessi is programmed to unknowingly like extract it via telepathy just by touching him. And she doesn't even realize she's done it until after she's done it. And she knows that it's wrong, but she's like, it just happened. Like, it's her brain is wired and programmed a certain way because people are taking advantage of her and nobody is giving her the love and affection that she deserves. So now that Jessi's in the picture, as far as Kyle's powers are concerned, they both get more powers. They are making each other better and stronger, and they can do more together because there's two of them like batteries. They gain this ability to be in each other's heads and also walk through memories because of their brains, because their brains capture everything, all information, even information that they don't realize they're capturing. They can kind of go into their brain and walk around their memories as if they're happening again. And then they can do it together as well. Like they can go in each other's brains and look. And that is wild. So they have this like crazy mind meld connection, and they make electricity, and they are soulmates. End of story. Part 6, the end of an era. To wind down, the last section that I have for you is all of the other things. Kyle XY runs from 2006 to 2009, okay? I told you it ends on a cliffhanger. I am going to tell you what that cliffhanger is, but I first want to tell you this show is replaced by none other than The Secret Life of the American Teenager. But that's not the only thing that they have in common. The other thing that these two shows have in common is that they both have re-virginization plots. I only ever associated it with Secret Life of the American Teenager until I saw it in this show. Re-virginization is this idea that you can become a virgin again in the eyes of the Lord, right? It's explicitly a Christian thing because virginity is not real, and we made it up, and you know, the breaking of the hymen, it can break at horseback riding, it can break in gymnastics. Virginity is a lie. It's made up because all of these religions run on sexual shame. So purity's bad, blah, blah, blah. That said, the idea of re-virginizing is a movement that kind of picked up steam in like the early 90s, where people who had already had sex were, you know, getting sort of re-blessed by people in the church to basically say like, I promise never to do it again. Oh wait, you don't cross your fingers when you mean it. I promise never to do it again. I pinky swear. I pinky promise, Jesus, and a priest like co-signs on your pinky promise that you're not gonna have sex anymore, and then you are like spiritually pure again for your husband. And I don't know too much about its origins. I don't think that it's all bad. If I had to theorize, I think that it probably has something to do with the fact that a lot of these purity-based, particularly, you know, American, Southern, evangelical forms of Christianity do in fact tell you that you are impure if you have been sexually assaulted, even though that's cruel and insane and awful. I imagine that there were people who had to get around that at some point, and they came up with this like re-virginization idea. And I'm sure that it really helped those people mentally, even though it's not justified, it's not valid or true. You should not have any shame, and it's never your fault. I just wish it wasn't necessary. Where was I going with that? So Lori, remember Lori and Declan, the first time they have sex is not great, and Lori is like, I think I'm gonna not do that again. And so she's like, I'm gonna re-virginize, and Hillary feels like a lot of guilt about having slept with Charlie when he was with Amanda. So she is also like, we're gonna re-virginize. If I remember correctly, the version of this plot in Secret Life of an American Teenager is, the girl, I forget her name, but she is the show's, heavy air quotes, the bad one. I think she's like Adrian, you know, the opposite of Shailene Woodley's character. It's burned in my brain. I remember her re-virginization moment. I wonder what other TV shows had episodes about re-virginization, and I also wonder like where ABC Family got it. Like, it's not a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, you know? Notably, Lori and Hillary do not go through with it. They're over it. They're like, oh, this doesn't matter. So they don't go through with it. They just decide that they are gonna, you know, make decisions about their bodies for themselves, and they don't need the blessing of a god or a priest in order to feel whole and worthy. Good for them. Because like I said, the show handles sex pretty well. Not perfect, but I think pretty well. Another thing that they handle, I guarantee has to have been pulled from like a real life scenario, especially in the early 2000s, right? This is pre-Obama, right? This is Bush era. Gay marriage is not legal. There's an episode of Kyle XY where Lori and Hillary are both single, and so they are going to go to prom together as friends. Hillary goes to try and buy the tickets, and she's going to buy 2 as the couple's tickets because they're cheaper to buy them as a couple, and they will not sell them to her because they will not sell tickets to same-sex couples. And Lori is like, but we're not a same-sex couple, and she's like, I don't know if that's the rule. And they're like, what the fuck is that about? Another person who catches wind of this is Andy, Josh's girlfriend. And Andy, Josh's girlfriend, is very upset about this because Andy has 2 moms. So Andy has 2 moms. So she protests. She plans a alternative dance, like a dance for the gays to go to instead. She asks Lori and Hillary to get involved, and they're like, fuck yeah, you know what? Sure. Low-key because it affects them because they wanted to buy the couple's tickets. So they all protest. They plan their own dance at the Rack, which, oh my god. I forgot to tell you, you know how these shows always have like a spot, always have like the house set, and then they have like the school, and then they have like a restaurant or like a bistro. It's like a smoothie place or a coffee shop or something like that. Well, their coffee shop, smoothie bar, restaurant, cafe in Kyle XY is called The Rack. And I don't know why. It's gotta be a reference to something, but every time they say it, it's so funny to me. And the fact that they have their gay protest dance at The Rack is great.
Something where everyone's welcome, no matter who their date is. A swing spring fling. I love it.
When Kyle's like, is it wrong for 2 men to go to a dance together? The parents are both immediately like, no, it's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with it. The school is wrong.
Stupid school won't sell a same-sex couple dance tickets.
What? Well, that's ridiculous.
What's wrong with same-sex couples?
Nothing. If they're girls.
Neanderthal.
Why are girls okay, not guys?
Both should be okay.
Like, they're clearly very, like, pro-gays, except Josh is a little bit like, gay people? That's weird. It's a little out of character, I guess. And so Josh kind of has to overcome that throughout the episode of being like, oh, I guess it's fine. Like, Josh and Andy are like unknowingly falling for each other. And one of the reasons that Josh is so upset about this alternative prom that Andy is helping throw is because Andy wants to take 2 dates, and they won't let her take 2 dates to the regular dance, just like they won't let the same-sex couples go to the regular dance. So she is all for this, like, I have gay parents, I love the gays, I want to have a threesome at this dance. And Josh is jealous, obviously, but he doesn't know he's jealous because they're not talking about it because they're teenagers, blah, blah, blah. And it turns out at the end that, like, Andy is like, my dates are gay. Andy's dates are gay. That's why she was trying to take them both, because they were going to buy couples tickets because they couldn't go to the regular dance together. She went with 2 gay boys who are gay for each other. And Josh is like, they're pretty cool guys. And she's like, yeah, that's how it works. And so Josh overcomes his homophobia, which is great. Charlie, however, Charlie does not overcome his homophobia. This blew my mind when this happened. He basically says some shit to Lori and Hillary about, like, oh, you wanted to come to this dance because you're lesbians, you're gay, ugh. And they're both like, yeah, aren't we, Hill? And then they make out. Gay rights.
I've always wanted to be a granola lesbian.
I support it. Yeah, cool, go for it. I think more girls should make out, you know? So I didn't have a problem with it, but I'm sure that, like, ostensibly, the fact that, like, the only gay kiss on the show is between 2 straight girls is, like, not ideal, but I still really liked it. There's also a moment later where Hillary is trying to go to another dance and can't find a date for another dance, and she's like, I think I'm just gonna, like, be a lesbian. Like, I'm so lonely, I think I might just date girls. And I'm like, I think you might just be gay, but to each their own. But apart from Andy having gay moms that kiss between Lori and Hillary is the only actual gay action that we ever see on screen. We never meet Andy's moms. Andy's moms never show up on screen. They're talked about a lot though, and nobody ever has a problem with them. It's never a bad thing, but we never see them on screen. And if you watch the gay prom or the gay dance scene, there is not a single gay couple in the background of any shot ever. There's not a single gay in sight. Not even like alluded to. There's not even like a visibly gay person in the show. Even Andy's dates who are confirmed to be gay for each other are never more than 4 feet apart. Like they dance on either side of Andy. I watched it multiple times because I wanted to see. And at one point I just went, this is a gay prom without a single gay. That kiss between Lori and Hillary and this clearly bisexual woman that Declan makes out with at a club in one episode are the gayest of the gay representation that we get, which it's just so funny. It's so funny for a show that is pro-gay to do a whole pro-gay episode and not have a single gay person on screen. Speaking of Andy, Andy has her gay moms. Andy is quirky. She plays video games. She wears t-shirts. She's not like other girls. Wears her little, fingerless gloves. And just like any fun, quirky girl character in the late 2000s, she gets cancer. This came out years before Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl, but she's very Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl coded. Couldn't find any evidence for this, but I feel like there were a lot of cancer plot lines. Like specifically kids getting cancer from like 2005 to like 2012 or 13. But she gets cancer and it's very sad, but also like we're told that she has cancer, but like we don't see her get cancer. They put in the bare minimum of work regarding Andy gets cancer. Like she doesn't lose her hair, which like, yes, admittedly, not everybody who has chemo has to lose all their hair at once or shave their head, but her hair stays, they don't even put her in a bald cap at one point. They don't even put her in hats to like imply that she's been losing her hair through this horrific chemo treatment that she's been supposedly going through. Every time we see her, in fact, she is like on a good day and she's fine and she doesn't have any, like there's not any evidence of her even being like tired. It's fine. They drop the cancer plot eventually because Kyle cures her cancer with his magic hug. The fashion in this show, I'll try to put in like a picture or a clip of the outfit over this. I think it's in the basketball episode. Lori walks into this gymnasium in a green tube top dress over blue bell-bottom jeans with these like chunky wedge heels, I think, and like thick ass series of necklaces, necklie, her little bag, and it's so 2006. It's insane. Like it took me out. Like I had to pause and I was like, that's fucking nuts that she's wearing that. B-level shows like these are where you need to go to see the fashion of the times. Don't look at the most popular show, because if it's the most popular, people are going to be dressed well. Like they're going to be styled more particularly. They are probably going to be a little bit fashion forward or timeless in a way. But when you find like a standard, like a basic crank it out cookie cutter kind of show that clearly had a lot of like market research put into it, but not a lot of like budget, that is where you are going to find the outfits that people were showing up to, right? You're going to see extras wearing their own clothes. You're going to see what people were really putting together. There's also like always a thing going on too in these episodes in the show, which is fun. Like there's always like a carnival or like a dance or like a big game or like a hands on a van competition. Like there's always like a thing happening, including but not limited to contests, competitions, prize awarding, merit-based activities. I started to notice like there was like a surprising amount of money issues episodes. And not just in the Traeger family, like Amanda's family, like other people were having financial issues, like companies were going under, and I was like, what is going on? And then I remembered, like, it's 2007, 8, and 9 or whatever, it's the fucking recession. So it's recession core. No wonder her pants were so big. So there's a whole bunch, they have like, Steven almost loses his job in like the first season. He has to like fire employees and he's worried because they have families and are buying houses and he's like, oh no, what do I do? And then later he loses his job. They also end up with a bunch of medical bills at one point because Nicole gets in a car accident. Nicole gets in a car accident at the same time. Wait, okay, I need to... Side note, Nicole gets in a car accident with Kyle and Josh. And she is like trapped in the car for whatever reason. So Kyle and Josh go to get help. And the only person that they come across just happens to be this other woman with a broken down car who is 9 months pregnant and goes into fucking labor. Like she is having a baby. So like Kyle has to, in order to like in the long run get help for Nicole, he has to deliver this woman's baby on the side of the road for no reason. Like there's no, like it doesn't, it's the weirdest episode. And normally I wouldn't spend all of this time going into all of this detail about a plot that I hate in a show, but I have to because I have to tell you that Kyle uses his electricity that he charges between his hands, like a lighter torch thing, to cut the umbilical cord. And like I don't know if it was supposed to be symbolic because like Kyle didn't have an umbilical cord or what, but like fucking bonkers, fucking ridiculous. But anyway, Nicole ends up in a hospital and Kyle has to steal some life-saving injection medicine. He poses as a doctor and then just like shoves a needle of liquid that he does not know what it is into her body to save her life, and it works and whatever. So they get massive hospital bills. So the kids like are trying to come up with a way to, you know, to get money to pay off these bills. So she's fine. But we also now know that Kyle can make legitimate, literal electricity between his fingers, which is a cool power to add, as well as bringing life. We can bring life. We can bring life back. Jessi dies at one point and Kyle is so distraught because Kyle loves Jessi because they're soulmates, that he fucking brings her back to life, like full Jesus and Lazarus. And that's not the only time that Jessi comes back to life, technically speaking, because towards the end of season 3, they are trying to get answers from Cassidy. Remember, Cassidy is kind of like a villain guy, and we're pretty sure that he killed Jessi's mom, and is also just up to all other flavors of no good, right? Including but not limited to restarting the Kyle XY experiment and making more Kyles, which no, nobody wants that. Kyle's like, I am happy to be alive, but also nobody else should go through this. So we need to stop him. But he loves Jessi and everybody loves Jessi, and Cassidy doesn't trust Jessi. So they fake Jessi's death and get Cassidy to trust Kyle because Jessi's dead. And they are in an altercation, right? Where this is the last episode. They faked Jessi's death. Kyle gets in like a full-on fight with Cassidy. They are about all of the past and who killed Jessi's mom and what they did to Adam Balin and what they're gonna do. And we've never seen Kyle like in a rage. We've never seen Kyle this angry before, and he is livid. And like in a blind rage, he just loses it and throws this Cassidy guy up against a fucking wall with his hands around his throat. And they cancel the fucking show. Like, why? Why? Why would they do that? Why would they do that? Except to spite me 20 years later, however long it's been. So that's the cliffhanger that the show ends on, and everybody was sad about it. Fans were very sad about it. People really tried to petition. They really wanted it to come back. But if they're not going to finish the OA on Netflix, they're not going to finish Kyle XY. So this was around the time of the writer's strike, but it's not actually because of the writer's strike. Apparently it's because of low ratings, but who really knows? It's replaced with Secret Life of an American Teenager. However, they do tell us in like DVD extras how they would have ended the show and where the show was gonna go. So I will tell you now that the plan was for Kyle to start to learn about his mother, who is this woman named Grace, whose like name we've heard a couple of times, but we've never met her or known anything about her. They were gonna have finding her and dealing with his sort of family legacy and his role in Latnock and the experiments that they're gonna do, and balancing that with his desire to like be with his family. And then they said the real question that was on everybody's mind was Kyle going to end up with Amanda or Jessi? They basically say that Kyle and Jessi would have given it a good go, and they would have had a very like emotional, tumultuous and passionate and interesting relationship that probably would have ultimately ended in a lot of heartbreak or drama. And then later in life, they imagined that Kyle and Amanda would, having grown up, gone to college and had life experience, would try again, but that it, you know, wouldn't be the same, and that Kyle would inevitably eventually end up alone, kind of walking a lonely road as a lonely superhero of the soul. And that is Kyle XY. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for watching. Comment shout out from the last video goes to Froggerino, _Froggerino, for commenting, LMAO at you saying Pollock separated art from politics when I just finished a podcast on how he was funded by the CIA. To which I, like a smartass, responded with the timestamp of the video in which I talk about the fact that he was funded by the CIA, only to be informed that they were just laughing about how funny it was that they had just finished a podcast about this topic and now I was bringing it up. And I simply did not read the tone. So I was the asshole. But they were very kind about it. And it just reminds us all that we cannot read tone on the internet. It was very hard to pick a comment for this comment shout out because I usually try to do like a funny one, but everybody in that comment section is very respectful and mature and having really interesting, nuanced discussion. And I'm very, very proud of you. And I'm very grateful and I'm happy. I'm very appreciative of the response to that video. I was really, really nervous to post it. And it seems that people were very much in a place to hear what I had to say. So I am grateful, and I am always open to suggestions for video ideas, especially for like shorter, less academic ones like this, because these are a little bit easier to make than my 6-month mammoths. I have a Patreon if you would like to join me over there. I do Patreon only videos. I take suggestions. I post all of my video essays in podcast format if you would like those. You don't have to do whatever you want to do. I have an EP coming out on April 26th. It is called Gomorrah, and it's gonna be a big old bummer of a time. So thank you, and I will see you when I see you.
Now let's say bye.
Bye.